Hi, happy Monday, Lit Up Uppies. I can almost never say that properly. I'm so excited and honored that I get to hang with you all today. First and foremost, a happy post Mother's Day for all of you who celebrate. I know, at least in the US, I think in Canada as well, we had Mother's Day this weekend. I am a step bonus mom, so I celebrated as well. And I'm here because Lacey is on maternity leave, so it feels so fitting. So a big lot of love and shout out to Lacey and a happy first Mother's Day to her and to Kenny and to baby Bennett. I don't know if you also saw she posted a photo on her Instagram account. I don't know if she posted it in here of her and baby Bennett. And it is just very sweet. So happy Mother's Day to Lacey, and a big thank you to Lacey because that is why I'm here today. And I'm so honored and excited to get to hang with all of you and get to know some of you if I haven't met you before. So before I dive into my topic today, we're going to talk about the dark side of making more money and why I still celebrated and why I'm still celebrating today, actually, my lowest income month of 2021. Let me introduce myself to those of you who I might not have had the pleasure of meeting before. I'm Kim Argetsinger. I'm a mindset coach and business mentor, and I work with passion-driven creatives, entrepreneurs, and coaches, and I help them to build, grow, and scale profitable businesses on their terms, and very much a big emphasis on that on your terms part. And I focus all on one-on-one coaching, very similar to Lacey, and use a coaching framework of clarity, mindset, strategy, and action. I bring a background of psychology. That's what I studied in school. I spent 10 years doing the acting thing in Los Angeles, so I bring that into my work as well. And I have a background in marketing and sales. I worked in advertising for some time. So I kind of blend that all together in my work. And I have worked with Lacey. I need to actually look this up. She was on my podcast recently, and I was trying to figure out how long it has been since I've worked with her. I think it's been 4.5 years. It might be even longer. I first came into Lacey's world when she was doing the partnership, the scholarship model, and was so lucky to get to start with working with her that way and have worked with her and continued to renew ever since. When I started working with Lacey, I'd have to look at our old revenue share reports, but I want to say I was making hundreds or thousands per month, and I now make multi-6 figures from all one-on-one, multi-5 figures a month. She's taking me to a consistent 30 to 40K months. So a big shout out to Lacey, and that's how I know her. That's why I am here today. And that's what I want to talk about today, because so often we hear those big income wins, right? I just did a live stream. Hey, Michelle, nice to see you. Thanks for saying hi. And anyone else, please, I'm probably new to you, so say hi and let me know, how you know Lacey as well, because I think that's all fun. We're all connected through the wonderful world of Miss Lacey. So I'd love to know who else is here, and just so great to be connected with y'all. And the reason I wanted to bring this conversation here is, as I'm sharing, it's, hey Jess, nice to see you as well. What I realize is so often in our online space, and it's such a beautiful thing. I'm such a big proponent of talking about money and normalizing talking about money, especially as women entrepreneurs, getting used to and comfortable looking at money as a very neutral thing and as a really beautiful thing to share those wins and to talk about income wins. And we see what happens a lot is here I'm telling you, yes, I make consistent 30 to 40K cash months. And last year, I know in my Facebook group, I was celebrating that we added 132K to my revenue last year. And we talk a lot about those big income wins, and it's so exciting. And I think it's so important. And I want to make sure, as we're talking about the dark side of making more money today, we're not starting to make that wrong or bad, because it is beautiful. It is important. It's important to normalize. It's a really important metric in business, quite honestly. I think money is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I think all of us probably could stand to be a little bit better about sharing those wins and bragging on those wins and being excited about those wins, and also being able to celebrate through one another what is possible. And I'm just seeing here a couple of comments. Hey Nicolette, nice to see you here. Celsius, I found Lacey through a former mentor, and I'm so glad she brought me into this community. Truly, I've met the most amazing people, and now getting to work with Lacey has just been the best, and to get to share that journey with everyone on the literally has been so rewarding too. I so co-sign that, and just thank you as well, by the way. Side note, not to get too sidetracked on our live stream today, but it is just such a gift to get to have literally and to get to hear your journey. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of that. So thank you as well, since I get to say that publicly here. And we all know in this, Lacey's clients all do, I think, we just get to see through Literally as well the beautiful income wins there. But I think what's so great about Literally, it's actually a great example and segue into our conversation today, is we really get to see the behind the scenes and have things normalized a bit more. And I think Lacey does such a great job with that. And I think what happens in our space, unfortunately, when it comes to money is we see the importance of talking about money and normalizing money. And we talk about money mindset and we talk about bragging on our wins. And please do not get off this live stream and stop doing that. I want everyone to do more of that. I think it's so incredibly important for so many myriad of reasons. And I think we don't always have someone like Lacey who has a podcast like Literally, where we're seeing the behind the scenes and we're seeing the normal things that happen in business and the normal things that happen with income. And so unfortunately, I think what can happen in our online space is money numbers and metrics start to feel a little bit like I think glossy magazines can feel for body image or for our looks, in that we start to see what someone's money appearance looks like after they've had their hair blown out and after they've had their makeup done, and when the lighting is just right, and when you have a professional photographer come in and snap a shot of them and put them in a magazine, and you're reading that magazine and you're sitting at home having just gotten out of the shower, or if you're a mom, you've just been taking care of your kids and you've been running around and maybe you're wearing your sweats and your hair's in a bun, you don't have any makeup on, and it's really easy when you're sitting at home, beautiful version of yourself, but not with, the blown out hair and the right lighting and the camera person there, to start to think, well, wait, there's something wrong with me because here's this glossy image and that's not what I look like on this day. And I think that happens, unfortunately. There's been such a push, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, there's been such a push for us to talk more about money and to own those wins more and to use those as examples of what's possible. And I think, unfortunately, what's happened is because there aren't a lot of avenues that show the both and, that show the glossy blown out photo and the hair in the bun with no makeup on, sitting in sweats at home, when it comes to income, we start to normalize and only see income in business as this number that continues to go up and up and up. And anything other than that can start to feel really wrong or bad. And I think, unfortunately, this can really create some damaging narratives and some really sabotaging behaviors in business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to normalize income in business. And then I want to talk about the dark side of money. And it is not that it's bad to make more money. And it is not that suddenly you spend all of your money and you go into debt or anything crazy like that. It's really to talk more about, I think, what can happen on the mindset side and how damaging that can be to the psyche, and how that can show up in your strategy and actually sabotage business. We're going to dive into that a bit, and then I'm going to share very transparently why I'm actually still celebrating that lowest income month of last year. And it's actually really fun to share this with you today because I have a fun celebration that is because of that lower income month. So I want to connect the dots there with you, and then I'm going to share some different ways you can look at goals in business so we're not only getting wrapped around that metric, that number in business. And I just want to see these comments. Let's see here. Michelle says, the normalizing and behind the scenes is so important. I'm not a business coach, but normalizing is so important for all our clients, regardless of what you do. So true. And I think with the work you do, Michelle, I think that's probably especially true with what you do, that what you get to see. And I think the same is here for us in business and really in every niche. And I think to be fair, because I think not everyone has the opportunity to normalize. I think, unfortunately, because of the way marketing is and the way marketing works, the truth is we do have to speak to results and we do have to speak to those wins. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's actually very important when we're also helping people see what's possible, and we're helping people see, look, if you invest your money and you make this scary leap, here's the wonderful possible thing for you on the other side. And we don't always have the opportunity to have these conversations. I happen to be really blessed where I work one-on-one. I'm not launching a big program ever, and I've been fully booked for a while. So it's a little easier, I think, as well for me to have some of these conversations. I do think they're so important to normalize, but just to not make anyone wrong either, who maybe doesn't have the same ability to, or feels like maybe they can't as easily. Let's see here. Nasheen, and am I saying your name correctly? Please let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Says, the normalizing allows us to truly be human and perfect while creating success. This is what I love about Lacey's messages. Amen. So true. And I mean, here's the beautiful thing, right? I mean, we're all humans. running businesses, serving other humans, all of us are going to be perfectly human and imperfect in this journey. And so that's what I love about Lacey's message, and what I love as well about being able to have these conversations. I think the more we can see, the more human we are, the more we allow people on the other side to be human, and the more we all get to imperfectly become the perfect versions of ourselves, or like perfectly imperfect, however that quote really goes, I think the better. Michelle says yes to not making anyone wrong for how they show up. And Machine says yes, you're saying it correctly. Thank you for asking. So names are important. My mom is Dutch. Her name is Sjoukje. So I grew up with names being butchered left and right. So I always want to do my best. I won't always get it perfectly correct, but I always want to do my best on the names. So let's first let's normalize income a bit, and then let's talk about the dark side of making more money. So Lacey has shared this before. I'm sure you've all seen her pull out her graph where she kind of shows the normalization of income or revenue in business, and how it's not a straight line. And not only is it not a straight line, but it also doesn't just go straight up. We have those ebbs and flows, and that is a very, very normal thing with revenue in business. I always tell clients to go look at the stock market if you want to feel better about your own business and your own sustainability in business, because the stock market will have those ebbs and flows, usually a lot more dramatically than a lot of our businesses will, and with much bigger number swings. And those are some of the top performing businesses in the world in terms of revenue. So we can really use that as an example of what is normal with revenue. But I think that's just a helpful, just as we're getting into this conversation, normalization, that really and truly, I've been in business for 6 years, and I only work one-on-one with clients, and I am a business coach, and I also use a revenue share model. So I literally see the behind the scenes of revenue for clients, for not just myself, but for all of these other businesses at all different stages, whether people are just starting their business or I have clients at the multi-six-figure $1 million mark. So I get to see this firsthand. No one's income is the same month to month, because I think even if we're not trying to scale, I think there's this narrative that it should look exactly the same with very little deviation, or you're doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with your strategy. And I think this happens at the starting phase of business when you're booking yourself out. And I think this happens when you're further along and you're making multi-six figures, even more. And so just to normalize, business is not a straight line, and part of the scaling trajectory really are those ebbs and flows. And what I like to remind clients is, what I'll remind you, and I think Lacey put a little bit of this in the email for this, is really not only do numbers tend to go kind of up and down, but I like to remember, if we're scaling our income, if we're creating more revenue in our business, anytime we want to create and bring in more of something, usually we first have to create some space for that to come in, right? Money loves a container. Money loves a purpose in a container. But anything in life, if you're creating a creative project, if you want to have a new relationship, right? If you want to have a new relationship, first, you probably have to create that space for that relationship to exist. And so for most people, if you're wanting to grow and scale income, that usually means the very normal thing to have happen is some space has to be cleared to allow for more to come in. Sometimes we refer to that as, contractions, expansions. I do think for some people, contractions come after the expansion. If you're someone who has a launch model, right, it's very normal to have a big expansion and then to have a contraction afterwards, because you're simply not selling in the same way. But if we're literally thinking about capacity to scale and capacity to increase revenue at a larger amount without working more, we have to create that space first. The story I will sometimes share with clients. I had my honeymoon in California, and we went into the redwoods, my husband and I, hiking, and we kept seeing these patches. I don't know if anyone's seen these, but these little tiny patches in the redwoods of what had looked like a baby forest fire. And we did some research afterwards, because it clearly wasn't a massive forest fire, but it's like these little tiny spots on our hike where it's like just little areas look like there had been almost like a contained forest fire. And what we learned is that this is actually a practice that the indigenous people in the area had done, and this has been carried over, where intentional forest fires would be set in a really contained way to actually burn off the dead debris and to burn off the essentially what was growing in the forest or that was dead, that was kind of weighing down the forest and stopping and limiting the growth of the trees. And this was done so that the forest could be healthy and so that the forest could grow high, bigger, taller. And it was really fascinating and such a metaphor to what we're speaking about here, because if you think about a redwood tree, those are some really, really incredibly tall trees, right? Literally what we would think about with scaling in terms of height, for those trees to be able to thrive and to grow to those high heights, some of that other debris, some space had to be cleared out. And so that's part of what I want us to think about when we're thinking about revenue and business. Whatever stage of business you're at, not only is it not a straight line, and that's just not how business works, and we just want to make that completely normal where there's going to be some deviation. I think we want to think about, if we're also choosing and wanting to scale, that sometimes some space has to be cleared, right? We have to burn off some debris to allow room for the taller trees. I want to read these comments. Julia says, hi everyone. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining. And by the way, y'all, throw questions. I'm such an open book, so as we're talking, feel free to throw questions my way. Jess says, oh, Kim, I need this right now. When you want to create more, it needs a container. Oh, I'm so glad this is coming when you need to hear it. And yes, we need that container. Relationships are the other awesome example for this. I met my now husband. We've been together 8 years? Don't tell him, I get the years confused. I think we've been together 8 years. We got married in our 7th year. I met him after I'd been single for about 5 years, after a decade-long relationship. And I remember when I met him, I had intentionally cleared and created space. I've been dating people who weren't the right fit for me. And I remember I had this moment of, if I want to meet the person who's going to be like my person and have this really healthy, loving, amazing relationship, I can't keep dating people who aren't a great fit for me. I can't keep being in relationships with people who are wonderful humans, but not great for me, and kind of expending all of that energy there. I really have to create space, right? I have to clear space. And I intentionally kind of took myself off the dating market. Go to say, and go figure, I met Eric, my now husband, a week after that. But it's kind of the same idea here with the clearing of space, creating that container. I first had to create a container for something new to come in that I was wanting to have in terms of a relationship. Money is kind of exactly the same way. So just another example for you. I personally like examples outside business. Nasheen says, would you say having a goal of consistent X amount monthly income is not a good way to set goals? And Michelle says, such a beautiful reminder. Okay, I'm so glad this is helpful. I don't think that that's not a great way to set goals, but I think what can be helpful is to, I think there's a way in which we set goals where like, I need to make X amount of consistent income, and that's my goal, and that's doing it right, and that's when I know I'm a success, and that's when I know I'm safe. And we start to we create a lot of meaning around a goal, as opposed to, I'm really available to make this amount of consistent income, or I want to have a range, and it feels really good to always make at least this amount of income, or this is the amount of income I want to create because that covers my bills, and that covers my team's expenses, and it's okay to have some deviation, but it's really safe to create this, and kind of here's the purpose for it. I think so much of with a goal, we want to look at what's the meaning and kind of what's underneath the goal. Is it a goal coming from, this feels really good, this feels really supportive, this is helping really pull me forward? Or is this a goal that's really, I feel like I'm not good enough until I reach that, or it feels really wrong if there's any kind of deviation from that. I'm a runner, so I think about running that way. I have a running time. Maybe I want to like run a certain time for a mile, and I know that would just feel really great to reach and achieve, and I'll just be really proud of myself. But if every time I show up to have that run, I'm kind of in my process goal, if I'm a couple seconds short of that, or I'm a minute short, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for showing up and having that run and getting closer to it and feeling really great about it, knowing that's kind of inevitable, as opposed to, well, I didn't reach that, or yesterday I reached that and today I was a little slower, I must be doing something wrong. I really want to celebrate the goal of showing up. So hopefully that, actually let me know if that answered the question, if that makes sense. But it's not that that's not the wrong way to do it. I would just check in with what's the intention underneath the goal. And I personally love focusing on process goals and kind of, can we reward ourselves for showing up more than the outcome goal? Julia says, when we hit that really low moment, it can be so hard to think about anything else, but it's such a beautiful reminder. It's teaching us something, and that that it does get better from there, something else to focus on. Julie says I'm a runner too. And Nasheen says, love your perspective on the income goal. Thanks. Okay, good. I'm glad that resonated. And to what Julie is saying, let's go there, because I want to talk now about, we normalize money a bit. Let's talk about the dark side of making more money, because here is the trap I fell into last year. I am human. I work with Lacey still for a reason. I think I can help other people with this all day long. I need someone to hold up a mirror and show me the spinach in my own teeth and to lovingly point out what's going on the same way I do for my clients. And that's one of the benefits of working with the same mentor over and over again. They also get to spot your stuff real quickly, and Lacey is very good at that. But last year, I had my lowest income month, and we're gonna talk about all the reasons that was a celebration, but one of the traps I noticed in myself and what I see happen for clients so often is, as I was making more money in income, I was sort of had a, 6 month, 8 month, I don't know how long it was, but I kind of had a trajectory where every month was either the same or it was increasing, which is wonderful. That's a beautiful thing to celebrate. And I love that and I celebrate that. And I was starting to see that's the way things are supposed to be. That's the way my business runs. I was almost kind of creating this story in my mind where it's I'm the exception to how business works. Business is supposed to keep increasing. And here's the place where it became a really big mindfuck and kind of the dark side of money, so to say, that I've just seen so often is I also started creating this narrative that I'm only a good coach if I keep making more money. And people are only going to think I'm a good coach, and people are only going to hire me if I keep making more money. And what I noticed started to happen was it wasn't even about making more money as a goal because I felt really good or it felt really stretchy or really exciting or there was a really beautiful purpose for that money. It started to become about, I need to put this pressure on myself to hit this income goal, or else I'm not a good coach, or else there's something wrong with me, or else there's something wrong with my strategy, or else I'm doing something wrong. And this is the dark side to making more money that I'm seeing happen. And I think it's sort of that, it's a shame, because I think part of what's happened in our space that is so beautiful that I want everyone to keep doing is this place where we are, I think, as a collective, sharing and talking about money more than we probably ever have in the past. I think, I grew up really learning the story that it's not good to talk about money and that's kind of gauche and you shouldn't talk about money, and definitely celebrating making money, I know, was not something that was really something that happened in my family. And I see that happen in our space. I know it's an edge for a lot of people. I know it's an edge for a lot of my clients, but I see this happening more and more. And that's such a beautiful thing. But with every beautiful thing, right, there's a shadow and dark side. And I think this is part of the shadow and dark side that I see happening. I saw that happening for me. I have a really good girlfriend who's been in business for 10 years. Just to show how prevalent this is. This is not just at the start of business. She makes great money. She has a launch model, and she was getting ready, this was last year, because I was having this conversation quite a bit. She was getting ready to launch her group program and getting ready also to get pregnant, basically, and to want to set herself up for success with her family. And it was really interesting. We were having this conversation and she was putting all of this pressure on herself, even though she wanted to slow down and she wanted to really kind of set herself up to have a smaller launch so that she could intentionally focus time and energy on her family, or just to allow for that to be a thing. There was all this pressure coming up of that not being okay, because if she didn't double her, literally the story she had was, if she didn't double her income launch numbers, and I asked her, this is okay for me to share, I'm not disclosing anything that is not okay to share, but she was telling herself this story that if she didn't double her income launch numbers, people would think her program wasn't good. People would think she's not a good business owner. She's not even a business coach. She's in the more spiritual world, and people would really think there was something wrong with her program. And it was really fascinating from where I was sitting to think, wow, look at all of that pressure that is getting put, unfortunately, on this launch. And I mean, completely the opposite of the intention she really wanted for the phase of life she was in. But also from where I was sitting, I could see, and even if she doubled her launch numbers, that kind of is irrelevant. That doesn't really show that her program is better or that she's better at what she does or her clients are getting better results. It simply means she had a bigger launch and more numbers going through. Just like if she didn't double her launch numbers, that wouldn't really say anything about her and her capabilities. And that's why I want to bring this here, because I'm just seeing how our want and our kind of attachment to income numbers and making more money. It's not like, oh, keep up with the lifestyle. I don't even think that many of us, I don't know, I don't think I have any clients who are really caught up in like, I need to make more money for like the flashy lifestyle things. I love money, I love spending money, but that's definitely not why I want to make more money. I actually don't think that in our space, that's so much of a challenge or a problem. It might be in other spaces where people are just wanting it to kind of like keep up with the Joneses, so to say. I think in our space, what's happening is it's really becoming a pressure point for a lot of people. And it's becoming a pressure point of, I've got to keep up, because if I don't keep up, I'm falling behind and people are going to think I'm not good at what I do, which is so bogus. Let's see. Michelle says, I've definitely felt this pressure, told myself the story about not being sold out with my one-on-one. Like I'm somehow a better coach if all my spots have been scooped up versus if I'm just serving 1 or 2 clients at a time. But the reality is that doesn't change my coaching at all. And that is the truth upon the truth. It really, I think what we want to start to notice and start to separate out is income, making money, a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing. I'm all for it. I will continue to want to increase my revenue. And when we can start to see however much money you make, literally, I know we hear this and it sounds so cliche, but when you can really start to tap into and embody and see and separate out the money you make in your business really has no bearing on your personal worth. And it definitely is not an indication of how great you are at what you do. The more freedom you start to have in your business, the more you can start to release the pressure in your business. The irony is, the easier it is to make more money. And the more fun it is to make money. Because what I noticed last year is I have a revenue share model that I implemented last year similar to Lacey, and for some really practical reasons, was kind of clearing house, so to say. I love my clients. I literally work with the best clients, I think, maybe outside of Lacey. Lacey has amazing clients too. But I work with the best humans ever. And I had some clients who had been working with me for a long time and my work had shifted a little bit. And it was really time to lovingly support them, to find support that made more sense for kind of what was going on in their life. And that was really important to me. And also to create some space for some revenue share clients, because if that's my model to scale, I'm blessed, my clients renew a lot. I really wasn't having a lot of new clients come in. And so I could kind of see that my lowest income month was kind of about to happen. And I was really stressing myself out for all the reasons we're talking about here, and really creating this story, which is very fascinating to me, kind of where I'm sitting today, being able to see how really so much of that was from actually a really beautiful place of integrity and wanting to serve people really deeply and really well. But how much that story was coming in and really putting pressure on my business. And what I find happens when we're in that space, and this is kind of the unfortunate, kind of like the dark side to the dark side of making more money. I think what can unfortunately happen then is it's really easy, if you're not being supported or not really great at self-coaching, to then start to find problems in your business that don't exist, and to want to start to fix things that don't exist, or from a pressurized place, really get into a frenetic place where you're either creating new offers that you don't even want to, or creating a business model that's out of alignment. Or if you're like my friend, feeling like you need to put a lot of pressure and energy into a launch when really you're wanting to take care of your body because you're getting ready to have a baby, right? There's all these different pressure-driven actions and strategy shifts that can happen that are very sabotaging to the long term of business and really the long term of making money. And so I think the kind of fascinating thing here is when we're coming from this place, when we're making more money and there's that pressure and we have this narrative and story that I have to keep making more, and the only way I'm successful, the only way I'm good enough is if I keep making more. And I'm kind of like stuck in this rat race. Hey, I don't know, most people I think have probably tried to get out of the corporate space. Suddenly you're back in that like corporate rat race mentality. You're on like an incline. We're talking about running, right? It's like you're on an incline with like the speed on 10 that feels like, oh my gosh, I can't get a break. Not only is this not how business works, but this is also how really great businesses can start to break down and cause a lot of pressure. I've been in this space long enough to see business owners who have scaled to 7 figures literally disappear. And I think part of probably what happens, I don't know, it's not like I've called them all up to find out what's happened, but I do know I have clients who come to me at this place where they want to burn down their whole business. I do find what sometimes happens is the pressure to keep up, because not because of lifestyle, but because that is what is felt as needed for marketing or to prove that the business is growing and good enough, will have people literally build out offers and marketing strategies and businesses that generate a lot of income that they want to burn to the ground because they're out of alignment or they're really unsustainable. As opposed to if we can kind of lean back a little bit and separate out and see, oh, first of all, business income isn't a straight line. Second of all, if we want to scale our income, it's normal not only for income to go up and down, but we got to create a little space. Like, money needs a container. That is a very, very normal thing. And third of all, if we're putting all that pressure on, like our worth and the value of our work is really not attached to making more money, we can then actually create that separation in space where it's like money then just becomes a really neutral thing. And we can actually get our eyes back on our business paper and see, what does my business actually need? What do I need to take care of myself? What actually makes sense here in this stage I'm in business? And that's when we can make goals for our business that actually really serve, ironically, our ability to make more money, our ability to sustain our income. Okay, I've got, I want to read these comments here. Let's see. Heather says, hi, Kim. I'm joining late. Have to go back and listen. I think I'll love this topic. Nice to see you, Heather. Thanks for joining in. Don't mind my finger. I don't know how to like swipe up without my finger going on I'm on my phone. So don't mind my finger on the screen, y'all. Michelle says, I totally notice a correlation between the more fun I have in my business and it really just in my life, the easier business becomes. I mean, if that isn't the truth of all truths, it's so counterintuitive to how all our high achiever brains are wired, but it's so, so true. And money is the same way. Right? When we can unhook from more money means I'm a better insert whatever it is y'all do. I'm a better business owner, or people are going to want to buy from me. Or when I make more money, then that means all of the world's problems will be solved. I am perfectly safe and everyone will think I'm amazing. When we can unhook from that, it's also so much easier to have fun in your business, and making money becomes so much more fun. This is a little bit of a side tangent, but I think it's really relevant here. Lacey talks about this a lot. She was just on my podcast and we were chatting about this. I know Kim 6 years ago would have wanted to flip the bird at hearing this, but Kim today will say how true this is. At a certain point, making more money in your business doesn't change a whole lot. And again, depending on where everyone is at in business, I know Kim 6 years ago would have eye rolled that or literally wanted to like flip off whoever was saying that. So I hold space for both here. And as I have gotten to a place where my business is really sustainable and we're making multi-six figures, the truth is a high month and a low month, well, not only is this normal, the truth is like to my actual personal life, I don't pay myself any differently. My team gets paid the same. Like all that really means is we put a little extra money into savings. Like it doesn't actually change the day-to-day that much. And I bring this here to what Michelle is saying, because when we can kind of unhook from the meaning we ascribe to making more money, because what happens is I think we attach so much meaning and so much safety to that, it becomes so much more fun to scale, to make more money. So not only do we get to have fun, like, because we're not putting all that pressure on in our business, but it actually becomes more fun to make money and enjoy it. And of course, the irony is exactly to what Michelle is saying. The more fun we're having, I don't know how woo everyone is here, but for those of you who like go into the woo side, like that's kind of the energy of manifesting the things we want. But that's also, and don't mind my husband's cooking in the background, so we've got some background noise happening, but that's also the space that from a mindset perspective, is psychologically, when you're in a fun, energetic headspace, you're in, I'm gonna geek out a little bit, but you're just like literally in a different part of your brain. When we're freaking out, when we're putting pressure on ourselves, when we're in fear, we're in the reptilian part of our brain, we're in that fight, flight, freeze response, right? That's when we contract up. That's when we make really poor decisions based on scarcity, based on fear. When we're in fun, when we're in creative problem solving mode, we're tapping into completely different parts of our brain, which means we also have an easier ability to forward think, to creatively solve. When we're in fun energy, we actually can have more forward thinking ideas pop in. So there's like woo or other side, there's actually a lot of science to that. Not to take us down a tangent, but that feels very relevant here. Michelle says, and really I'm just assigning this meaning to it, but it's definitely something I can get behind. No, I get behind it fully. I'm reading this after you said that. I'm fully with you. Hey, Belinda. Okay, Belinda says, some major people have disappeared, which is always interesting to notice. A friend who was a dominator just took a year-long sabbatical because she just couldn't sustain it. And I think, and like my heart goes out to anyone. I have a few clients who are kind of in this place. Like my heart goes out to anyone. Like this is not, again, because Belinda, I know you're not saying that, but like just feels so important to say this is not to throw shade on anyone at all who has created epic success, created a lot of money, and then burnt out or couldn't sustain it or kind of put a ton of pressure on like we're talking about here. But I think it is really helpful to see, because what's happening, like that is kind of it's the dark side of making more money, where we're seeing, oh, there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure to keep up, to feel like you have to keep growing, that number is supposed to keep going up, that we're seeing people burn out. We're seeing really brilliant people who have created really beautiful success, who do really great work. There's someone I know whose work I really respect who I think shut down their business completely. And I know I have a client who I'm working on this built $1 million business. We're doing a lot of work around this right now because it's not sustainable, not even from a like a strategy action, like how much they're showing up or how much team is showing up, or even in terms of what they're paying team. In terms of the nervous system and the internal workings, it's not sustainable because it is like a backpack filled with all of the bricks and rocks and weight of pressure that if she doesn't keep growing, like something horrible is going to happen, or that means something horrible about her. And I think that's just so unfortunate in our space, which is why I want to keep having more conversations. I want to say, yes, celebrate you've made $1 million, celebrate the 40K cash month, celebrate the 10K cash month, celebrate the $10 cash month. I mean, we're all, I don't know, my first $1,000 in business was probably the biggest celebration ever, because I'll tell you, 0 to 1,000, 0 to 100K, that is the hardest phase in business. Celebrate them all. And let's pivot a little bit and talk about why I'm also celebrating the lowest income month, because it's not just because I want to say, there's this dark side to making more money and I want to hook from it. There were some really beautiful things about that lowest income month. Okay, Jess says, I've totally felt that pressure, even though my brain knows a slingshot month or 2 or 4 is so normal. I made it mean I'm not enough before, instead of seeing what that can do for me. Thank you for sharing that so transparently. I think it's just so helpful. The more all of us say like, hey, me too. Like, you're not the only one. I mean, I'm sharing this with you today because of last year's income month, but bless Lacey's heart, I definitely had a good couple calls with her where I was really ascribing some meaning here that was not true at all. I will share some beautiful wins from that. Y'all, how do I do that? If I scroll from this side, this is how I do it. Then I don't get my finger in the screen. I'm really good at business and mindset, y'all, and coaching. I'm really bad at technology and all things technology. Michelle says, give me all the woo things. I will drive the woo train. I will drive the woo train all day long, and then I'll also drive the practical science train. And what I love about that, Michelle, is what I have found is all of the woo is really backed by science and really backed by how our brain works, which is very fun to me. Hey, Shannon, nice to meet you. Nice to have you here. Brittany says, oops, what did I just do here? Brittany says, I think I just turned off a light. There we go. I joined late, but ever since I crossed 6 figures, I keep manifesting random illnesses. I've had 4 doctor visits and 2 hospital visits in the last 6 months. Brittany, thank you for sharing that. I will be mindful not to take us too far down a rabbit hole because I want to share the celebration part here, but this is so normal and so real. And I don't know if you've read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It is one of my favorite books. I have read it probably 4 or 5 times at this point. He talks a lot about upper limiting, and I think this is one of the most normal things. I think what we don't talk a lot about in our spaces is how uncomfortable success is and how our brains are literally not wired for success. They're wired for survival, safety, comfort. And so when we create more success, when we start to make more money, when we start to get everything we've ever wanted, I call it my pinch me little, like happy little life, my pinch me business, it is so uncomfortable to the brain because what the brain is used to previously is like, even if it wasn't comfortable, that was our comfort zone. And so for most of us, when we hit new levels of success, everyone has a different threshold. The brain freaks out, and it will, not to say it's your fault and you're making yourself sick at all, like fuck that bullshit, because that is not the case. And I do not ascribe to that kind of thinking. However, I do think it's interesting to notice how many of us will, what Gay Hendricks says, upper limit. And when we've created success that just feels like almost too good to be true and too sustainable, I have a friend who's like this. She gets sick every single time she hits a new milestone. Me, I used to pick a fight with my husband. Literally every time I would book a client or have a big income win, I would pick a huge fight with my husband. I've gotten much better at it. And we've had enough conversations. He'll say, babe, are you upper limiting right now? In fact, this weekend we had a really beautiful weekend and it's been a very beautiful month in business. And I was getting a little salty and curmudgeonly. He's like, honey, do you think maybe you're upper limiting? So just to normalize, I think that's a really normal thing that happens for everyone. And the more you know that's normal, the more you can also start to notice all of us tend to have some common ways we upper limit. And so if you start to notice those, it can be easier to kind of spot them. And you have to maybe just to know for you, you might just need like some extra self-care whenever you have a big pop. Okay. Let's see. And then I promised you all I would share the celebrations and the goals piece. I will not forget that, but I want to see these comments. Okay. I have to scroll on this side. Michelle says, celebrating that I'm in the hardest stretch of biz, 0 to 100K, and celebrating that I'm fully intent on staying in and building a biz that feels good for me no matter how long it takes. Fuck yes. I hope y'all don't mind if I curse. I'm a cursor when I get excited. It is the hardest stretch of business, not to create a story, just to normalize. It gets so much easier after that. I rode that stretch for a long time, and I cannot tell you how much easier it gets after that. So it is so worth it. And that is so true. And that is such a celebration. And doing it in a way that feels good literally changes everything we're talking about here, because that's one of the things I've realized is, after a certain point, it really doesn't make that much difference. So if you're doing it in a way that feels good, that's how you sustain your success. That's how you can be one of the business owners that's around year after year after year, loving their business and their life. And I noticed from listening to Literally how important that is for the work you do in your life. So celebrating you and seeing you in that. Brittany says, I've read it. It's such a good book, isn't it? I love it so much. Michelle says, and yes to the science and the woo being so intertwined. One of my spiritual biz mentors was a former neuroscientist. Such a fun combo. Ooh, that is very cool. In my future, if there were parallel lives, I would want to be a neuroscientist. Belinda says the upper limit thing is no joke. She says, oh, I also get sick with every launch hop. It's so normal. It would be interesting to hear from everyone. Do you all know what your favorite way to upper limit is? I think it's almost a fun way to bring some levity and to put that spin on it, where it's like, what's my favorite way to upper limit? Mine is definitely picking fights with my husband. Bless his heart. Though I've gotten so much better at not doing that. Michelle says, I love that your husband asks you if you're upper limiting. He's pretty good that way. Now, Shane says, can you repeat the term you used? Upper limiting. It's upper limiting, and it's a term coined by Gay Hendricks, and the book is called The Big Leap. And it's a really short read, really easy read, but it's one of those ones I keep revisiting. I think it's really, really, really beneficial. But it's really helpful just to highlight so many of these things, and also just to see how often we do this as humans, and how often so many of the challenges we have, and again, this is not to say anything is anyone's fault. I want to be so mindful, because I think this can get a little spiritual bypassy, almost like toxic positivity land. And that's not what any of this is meant to be. But how often we can choose things subconsciously because we get that secondary gain, that payoff from it, because it helps us to kind of slink back down to our comfort zone, to kind of get back to the place where I know how to handle this. Okay. All right. Everything's not good. This almost feels easier because now there's a problem to solve. All right, Julia put the title in. Awesome. So you guys have that in there. Okay, so let's talk about why I'm celebrating the lowest income month and why I'm still celebrating it today. Because we talked a lot about the dark side of making more money and normalizing all of this. And I think it's almost I don't know, this is how my brain used to hear it, where it's I heard all of that, but then the high achiever in me was yeah, that's cool. And I kind of want to keep making more money. I want to be the exception to the rule, or we're just going to allow for a really small deviation. But high achiever brain, almost knew those things and could coach clients on those things. But truth is, when suddenly I was going to have my lowest income month, and when I say that, it wasn't a deviation of $1,000 or $2,000. It was, revenue share already can have a swing, which I have to be okay with. But I was kind of intentionally clearing some space in my business. And so I think I want to say it was a $10,000 or more. We can deviate. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was a couple months in a row. It was at least a $10,000 or more. It might have even been $15,000 dip. And so I think that's kind of the funky thing too, right? Like this can happen at every stage of business. I'm sure the same thing happened when I was growing my business, but as you're making more money, those swings can also be a little bit bigger. And the reason I'm celebrating that and still celebrating that today is a couple things. First and foremost, it was just so helpful to see that happen and to see, oh, I'm fine. I'm totally safe. I think I had this whole story, like the bottom was gonna fall out. People would think I suck. Nothing bad happened. Like literally the next month happened. I paid myself exactly the same amount. I paid my team exactly the same amount. And then we had a little less overflow. Literally nothing changed. And that was, I know Lacey talks about this in different ways where it's sort of like when our biggest fear happens, seeing how safe we are. It was so helpful for me to see how sustainable my business is and how, I mean, really that's a form of gratitude. Like how grateful I am that my low income month was still a really, still a multi-6-figure month. It was a month that at the start of my business, I would have been like, I could make that much money from one-on-one coaching. So there's a celebration in that, but I think that almost feels very surface level. And I want to say truly, it was so helpful to see everything was fine. Nothing happened. Literally the month was no different than the month before. In fact, I would say that was one of my most joyful months in business last year. I love my business. I love my work always. So it's not like, oh, suddenly business was so much better. But here's what's interesting. Because the pressure got removed, because suddenly it was like, I hadn't realized how much I felt this pressure to keep making more so I could prove that I'm a really great one-on-one coach. Like I'm a great coach because I keep making more money, and I had felt this trap to keep almost chasing other people with different business models, which as a side note, for any of you who are human who might find yourself doing that, please, for the love of all things, allow yourself to unhook from that, because there will always be someone who's making more money. This was, I think, a conversation Lacey and I had, and it was just so helpful for me to see. Like that's a race you're always going to lose, and it's just not serving in any way. But when that got taken off, I really got to see, oh, well, look at this. Everything is fine. Literally nothing has changed. And I think I had more fun that month coaching because I just really got to unhook from worrying about making more money and chasing that, and really just got to focus on the joy. I feel like I refell in love with the craft of coaching. And again, I always love my clients and work, but I feel like I had some of my best calls that month. My clients had incredible results. They always do, but like it was one of those months where I could really actually notice it, because I don't think I was allowing myself to even see that in the past. And it is so beautiful to see, because I can sit here and say, oh, I can really see I can make less income and still be a great coach, because they're not related. My income is not attached to my ability. And I want to celebrate that and bring that to you, because I want to help everyone see that, where, yeah, it can feel, I think sometimes we can make that connection, but when you can actually sit in a month that maybe isn't as high, where there is a dip, and see, I still love my work. Oh my gosh, my clients are doing amazing. Oh my gosh, look at how great I'm doing. Look at how great I am at my craft. Look at how great I'm holding space. Whatever that, I mean, maybe you're an OBM, maybe you're a designer, it might be something completely different, but then you can really start to make that connection to the mastery of your work has nothing to do with the scalability of your income. That's really more a business model thing. And again, we're not hating on scaling, but that's where a lot of the sustainability in your nervous system and in your joy that allows for the sustainability in the revenue side comes from, if that makes sense. And I think it's so powerful to see. And what I really got to sit in there is, oh wait, I love this work. Like this, no one can ever take away from me. I don't want anyone to take away this from me. And I got to really connect the dots to what makes me a better coach. Insert whatever, I mean, I know everyone here is not a coach, obviously, but is simply showing up and coaching my face off. I'm a better coach because I keep coaching. I'm a better coach because I keep deepening my mastery, and that is an ongoing, lifelong journey. I'm not a better coach or a better business owner or better if you're a designer, an OBM, or a, therapist. I think we have so many different kinds of businesses in here that are service-based, right? It's because you keep showing up in service of your work. You keep showing up to deepen your mastery. That's really, I mean, everyone here is inherently good enough, but really that's what deepens all of our ability. And I think that can be such a beautiful thing, because then it really does become about the work, and it really becomes about the work from a place of like, why did we start this in the first place? I know I started my business in the first place because I love the craft of coaching. I love serving people. And I feel like that month I got to rediscover that and re-fall in love with that, because the pressure of, it was sort of like, well, this month is my lowest income month of the year. All right, that already happened. Cool, next, that's done, we're fine. All the bad things I thought were gonna happen haven't. Let me re-fall in love with my work. Let me re-fall in love with this craft, with why I started this 6 years ago. And I think that is such a gift we can all give ourselves, that sometimes we lose sight of when we're just thinking we have to keep making more money because that's what proves to marketing or to the online space or to our clients or to ourselves that we're good at what we do. And again, I think that's when we can unintentionally land in business models we don't want to do, or solve problems that don't exist, or get into self-sabotaging behaviors in business. Jess says profit swings can sometimes be a thing when you're growing too. Absolutely. And I think that's why I think this conversation is so helpful. Thank you for saying that, Jess, because I think this can happen when you're growing your business as well. And I think this is when you're growing your business and we don't normalize these swings. That's, I think, when we start to think, oh, well, my strategy doesn't work and I better go do something else, or I better hop on another platform, or I better, if I'm on Instagram, I should be on TikTok instead. If I'm on TikTok, I should be in Facebook groups, right? I think that's when we can jump around. Or if I'm selling one-on-one, I should sell groups. If I'm selling groups, I should sell one-on-one. I think that can happen when you're growing, if your profit swings, instead of saying this is simply normal. And I think many times, I think the belief can be in our online space that goes away when you hit a certain level of income. And what I want to offer here is the income swings will still happen, and we have to be mindful, because that sort of jumping around or that sort of reaction just might look different, but we can still create the same sabotage within our own businesses. Michelle says yes to falling in love with the process. Falling in love with the process it's kind of the secret to goals in business and making money. And it sounds so cheesy, but it really is the thing. Here's the other thing that happened, and this is kind of what we were talking about at the beginning. We were talking about clearing space to scale. What I really know to be true, and what I realized to be true that month, but I didn't have the evidence for it yet. And today I have the evidence. So it's kind of a fun thing to share now, why I'm still celebrating that lowest income month, is part of the reason my income went down is I was clearing space in my business, right? I was clearing space for some new clients who were going to be in the revenue share and who are going to be a really great fit and alignment for the work I was currently doing. The clients who we kind of, close things out with were beautiful. Like, I love them so much. They're beautiful humans. It just was really no longer a fit for my work. And so what's really fun to celebrate there is allowing for that mini forest fire, so to say, or allowing for, breaking up with all the people who aren't a fit that you're dating. What that did is that created space, and it created space literally in my business as well as energetically. I think it created a lot of space, which means I started having the time, literal space that way and also the space on my roster, because I was fully booked. Last year I was overbooked at one point. So sounds like a I don't know, good problem to have, but it also meant that if I'm overbooked, I don't really have space to bring in more clients at revenue share. And in this new model, I'm wanting to bring for scaling, which means I had the space to start doing that. So because my income month, while that income month was lower, that was also the income month that allowed my business to scale. That created the space that allowed us to scale. And so today it's really fun because I just had, this month was our biggest revenue from revenue share this month. But that is partially due to the fact that that space was created last year. Because I think that takes a second to revenue share is not, all results are not take an action, see a result, but I think revenue share can have a little bit more of a long game approach. So it's really fun to be able to celebrate and see wait a second, all of those things that our brain wants to freak out about, that lower income month was literally the catalyst for a higher income month later. And that's the piece with contractions and expansions that I think, kind of bringing it full circle, is so important to remember, and why it's such a celebration. Not only is it normal, and not only is it, hey, super, super normal, we want to take the pressure off, but I think when we can also see oftentimes this is also, if we allow it to be and we don't freak the F out and go sabotaging things or running away or get into fight, fight, freeze mode and take action from that space, when we can see a contraction, a dip, as not only a normal thing, but what literally precedes an expansion, I think we can start to see income months that go kind of low as a little bit more of a celebration, where it's like, oh, well, wait a second, almost, not that we want to like will it, but it's like, wait a second, if I want to scale, I kind of had to have that happen. That's such a beautiful win. Just like if your contraction tends to come after expansions, if you had a beautiful big launch, right, you almost have to allow for a contraction after that so you can recharge, so you can serve all those people you just sold through a launch. And how effed would it be if you had a huge, big launch? So you have a 200K launch, so you have a 200K sales month or cash month, whatever that might be. And so then your next month, let's say you don't have a lot of payments coming through and it's significantly lower. How screwed would that be if you ran that model, if you then got really mad about that lower income month and hated on that and thought there was something wrong with your business and that you shouldn't have that model, when really all that is evidence of is what has allowed that beautiful 200K launch the month previously to happen. The same thing happens the other way around, right? For those of us who have different kinds of business models, a lot of times the contraction does come first. And when we can start to see that as, oh, wait, this is just kind of the thing that happens before the bigger win, I think we can start to see those as such a celebration. When I can see becoming super single and really loving that and embracing that as a celebration, that's how you meet your husband the next week, right? When we can see a lower income month as, oh, this is a really beautiful thing. Not only do I fall in love with the process of my work, and not only is this normal, and not only can I see I'm completely safe and how beautiful, like, that my income is that consistent and sustainable, but we can also see it's like, wait a second, this means this is setting me up, if I allow it to and I don't get in my own way, to have a bigger month later. And I think that's where not only normalizing the ebbs and flows of income is so important, but I think that's where also seeing the beauty in those lower income months can really set you up for those expansions. Okay. Let's see here. Michelle says it's not cheesy at all. It's also the number one thing I do with my infertility IVF clients, and why my signature program is called The Joyful Journey. I love that name. And you're setting me up perfectly for what I want to close this conversation with. Let's see. And Michelle says, oh my gosh, congrats, Kim, celebrating you. And love how you're recognizing here where that's happened in the timeline too. You also can't make up the timeline. I mean, it's when Lacey went on maternity leave, we obviously set these topics up a while ago. Lacey's very good at planning in advance. So this is actually a conversation I had with my Facebook group probably in January, at the beginning of the year. And I shared a couple topics with Lacey. I was like, I still feel like this is a really important one to share. And I wish we were talking about this more. So we had picked this topic, but there's no way I could have known when I picked that like literally this month I'm celebrating that. So it actually just feels, it's very fun to see. I was already celebrating. And I think that's also what allowed for that to happen, but just so perfectly timed that it's happening this month while I'm sharing this with all of you. But I do think there's a little bit of, and then I want to read your other comment, and I will close out with the way I have been really looking at viewing business goals as kind of a last button to this conversation. But I will say though, kind of the piece to that it feels important to say as well is, because I've been celebrating that lowest income month, because I've been seeing what a gift that is, because I've, and I mean, big thanks to Lacey for holding me through that. And this is why coaching, I believe, and having a one-on-one coach who knows your shit is so important. And why those long-term relationships are so important, because I do think another coach could have easily seen that as a problem and, you know, pushed me in another direction or told me I need to, like, I don't know, create a course program or do something different that was out of alignment for me. But because of that shift, and because I can see this as a celebration, because I can see it as not only safe, but a really good thing, that means my whole focus has shifted. And we've been talking about woo here, and also on the science side of things, what we focus on expands. Lacey literally has that sign right behind her when she's talking, right? And I think what we can see is it's really hard if we're telling ourselves, oh my gosh, my income is going down. Oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. Oh my gosh, I'm not good enough at what I do. Oh my gosh, this means people are going to think I'm horrible, or they're not going to think I'm good, or I won't be able to sell. It's really hard if that's where our brain is focusing, to keep thinking those thoughts and then create really beautiful results in business, whether it's on the joyful, like the way we're feeling in our business, or on the monetary side. It's also really hard if we're hating on a lower income month, right? Our subconscious brain loves congruence. It will create in our conscious life whatever subconsciously we believe to be true, or it's going to do the best it can. And so if we're telling the story that it's bad to have a low income month, we're basically saying money is bad, because however low your income month might be, you're still making money in your business. And if we're not seeing that as a win, if we're not celebrating, if we're not loving on that, if we're not having all the gratitude in the world for that, not from a bypassing place, not from a place where we don't look at data when we need to, when we don't look at, challenges we need to address in business. But if we're not also taking that perspective, there's a part of a narrative we're telling ourselves, which is money is bad. Making money is bad. This is bad. This isn't enough. This isn't good enough. It's really hard then to get the brain or the universe, depending on what you believe, on board with bringing in more. So I think just kind of important note to put on that. Let's see. Michelle says, I saw this in my infertility journey with our 3 losses. I don't think any of those losses were necessary, but I can totally see how they are now serving and being able to truly deepen into the things I teach my clients and to hold space for them. And it does also feel important to say we're not creating a story here that you have to have a loss, or anyone is creating those things and making them happen, or that you have to have losses or dips to have good things happen. I don't want to create that story. And it is normal. I think it's so beautiful that you can see how that serves your clients. And I've heard you talk about that on the podcast, which is so, so beautiful. And I think when we're talking about money, we can also see how those fluctuations are normal when it comes to money. And money just gets to be a really neutral vehicle, a neutral thing for us. And how sometimes when we have those dips, they can set us up for more success. Michelle says, yes, so the universe's timing is so good. I mean, you cannot make this shit up. Okay. I feel like I'm getting a sore throat because I'm all animate about this. I think I want to talk about the way I've really been focused on setting goals since. Hopefully I feel like I had bullets. I got off on some rants here, but hopefully I covered the main things I wanted to. But the last thing I wanted to close in here is if we're talking about the dark side of making more money, again, I still have big money goals. I absolutely still plan on making more money in my business. I want to keep saying, we are not saying making more money is bad. We're saying that's beautiful. We are saying sharing about that and talking about that is beautiful. And with every beautiful light, there is a dark shadow side. We just want to be really, really mindful of what those shadow sides are, and that we're not just getting wrapped up in kind of the light shiny part and getting stuck there without seeing where some of those shadow sides can come in and sabotage us or slow us down or have us make ourselves wrong. So I want to be mindful as we're closing this out that we're talking about both. And so I'm absolutely still have my next goal with one-on-one is to have a 50K cash month. I don't know when that will happen, but that is absolutely my goal. And the difference is I'm no longer making that mean when I make 50K from one-on-one, that means I'm a better coach. I now see I'm a better coach because I keep showing up and coaching, because I love my business, because I love my clients, because I'm deepening my craft, because I'm in the process of deepening my mastery. I'm obsessed with the term mastery and with the concept of mastery because it is a ongoing process with no end and stop, and deliberate practice, which not to go down a rabbit hole, but that is a really big component of mastery. And deliberate practice asks us to have big goals and asks us to look at feedback and asks us to sometimes stumble and fall so that we can look at what's going on to get that feedback to continue to take new action. And that is really where I see the ability or that part coming from. And I see the money as separate. And I think that's the big difference in terms of setting the income goal, is seeing I will still be super excited. It just gets to be fun, like we were talking about. Making money is just so much more fun when all of that heavy meaning isn't attached there. And that also makes it easier to bring in money. So everyone still have your big income goals if they feel good to you. No, if not, you do you. But the other thing I've really been focused on that we've been kind of, and I think Michelle was talking about this, so we've been kind of touching on a little bit here, is I've really fallen back in love with process goals. And a process goal, basically the difference between an outcome goal and a process goal is an outcome goal is the 50K cash month, right? From one-on-one. A process goal are what are all the goals that you're going to be in process of that help get you there. And I've really this year, at the beginning of the year, when I sat down to write my goals, yes, I made some money goals, but I really refocused on what are some process goals in my business? What are some goals in my business that really don't have anything to do with money, that have more to do with my values or more to do with my version of success is what I call it, or more to do with process goals that I can focus on, because the process really is the journey. And I mean, I don't think it's cheesy. Some people might want to eye roll at it because I think it's easy to do that, but that really is our experience of making money. And when you can find a way to fall in love with the process, when you can find a way to fall in love with the journey, when you can find a way to fall in love with that again and enjoy that, like that's kind of the whole point of everything. And that's where the sustainability in any business comes from. If you have a big goal and the process goal or the journey sucks, it doesn't matter if you reach that goal, right? Then you're one of the business owners who I'm talking to who wants to burn down their business and feels super like handcuffed to it because it's making all this money, but they kind of hate the way they're having to make their money. I always say money is not created equal. And so I've really just been relooking at things like that. And I know for me, it's things like I want to make the same, or I don't even care if we make the same amount of money this year, like if it's in a range. I would like to make more. I am available for that. But what's so much more important to me is the way I'm making that money. I am just that much more committed to the alignment of one-on-one is my thing, and I'm going to do that. And really what I've been focusing on are things like, what is my enjoyment level in my day-to-day? How can I keep that thing where I'm like, I'm just falling in love with the craft of this and my clients in this work? And then the other thing we've really been focused on is my team, and really looking at some of the process goals there and seeing that as much as a marker for success as the income piece is. So I wanted to offer that here because I think it's almost like we sometimes need something to replace that with. Otherwise it's like, okay, great. But if I'm not like chasing this carrot of money over here, what else am I chasing? And definitely have those money goals, but I want to invite everyone to also play with what are some other markers for success and for what success means to you, whether that's a values or alignment piece or the way you want to feel in your business, or it's really a more practical, it might be something practical like bringing on a team member and having processes and systems in the background working really well. But how can you also start to have some goals around that are more process focused? Because that I think is where, again, just so much of that sustainability comes from, which allows for that scalability. I want to see these comments. Brittany says, Kim, did you say you had a Facebook group? Yes, I do. It is called Business Besties and Creative Bosses. And y'all, I mean, I love connecting with you in here, but you're definitely welcome to come hang out in there, and really love the community in there. So thank you for asking. And I thank you for reminding me, because otherwise I'll just like want to close on this and not share those things with people. Laura says, hi, love this topic. Laura, hi, I love you. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Julie says, oops, process goals. Love this concept. Yeah, I think it's just so helpful. I think process goals really help us unhook the, just checking the time because I actually have a team meeting very soon. So I can be very long-winded. I will wrap this up in a bow. I think the really nice thing with process goals here too is process goals I find are something we can have a lot more control over. And I think that feels really good for all of us who are high achievers, who are a little bit of control freaks like me. But I think it's also really good for the self-trust side of things, because a process goal, I can, let's say I want to, really focus on my craft, and I really want to focus on serving clients well, and I really want to focus on how much I'm enjoying serving my clients and creating content. And let's say a process goal was also showing up live every week, right? Those are things I have a lot more control over. Whereas if my goal is only a 50K cash month from one-on-one, I mean, yes, there are things I can do that I can but there's only so many things in my control there. And it's just really easy to feel like that gap and to get stuck in scarcity or to make yourself wrong or to get stuck in all the things you can't control. Whereas process goals, you get to just keep seeing I keep showing up for those. Self-trust muscle built. I keep showing up for that, gold star. I just get to feel awesome about that. So I think that's what's really nice about those as well, which feels really good. And when you feel really good and you're having fun, kind of like we were talking about, that's also the energy that allows for sustainability and more money to come in. So very meta in that way. Let's see. Julie says, I joined a few days ago. It's called Business Besties and Creative Bosses. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. Michelle says, yes to the process goals. I also find that it's a lot easier to control how much fun I'm having in my business versus how much money is coming in. Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you said that. So much more empowering to be like, look, I did this thing and it brought me joy. I swear I had not seen that before I said that. So we are just reading each other's mind today. So thank you. Yes, cosign, obviously. Brittany says, okay. Oh yay, Kim Argetsinger, can you share the link in the comments? It didn't come up when I searched. Yes, when I hop off after this, because I'm on my phone and I do not know if I can do that without knocking myself offline because this is not a mindset. It's just true. I'm just not great at tech. Never mind. I found it. Perfect. I'll drop a link for that afterwards. Here though, I will drop a link to the group. But let me tie this up in a bow. First, y'all, thank you for joining me here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for having this conversation. Sincerely, I think it's so important. I feel blessed that I'm in a place where I feel like I can have this conversation. And again, we're not going to throw shade to people who feel like maybe they can't. I do think it's very important for marketing to continue to share those big income wins or big wins, whatever that might look like for you. And if you're in a position in business to have some of those normalizing conversations, I think it can be really helpful as well. But I just appreciate everyone being so open to it and showing up, because I know I'm a stranger to most of you. I knew a few faces on here, but I'm really glad I got to meet you all and get to have this conversation. I hope this is a conversation we can have more of, because I also think the more we normalize this, the more we have these conversations, the more, I think, again, we've gotten better at talking about money, which already that erases so much stigma, and that's so beautiful. But if we're going to erase the stigma of talking about money, if we're going to feel more empowered as women making money and running businesses, I think we have to create space for the dark and the light, right? The shadow side as well as the bright side. And otherwise what happens is, I mean, it's the Brene Brown quote, right? And I'm butchering it here, but it's essentially the things that we feel shameful about and that we hide in the dark. Those are the things that fester and grow. And I think the more we can shine a light on some of those things that are a little more at the shadow side, the less they can fester and grow. And the more we can see, oh my goodness, this thing I was worried about, this thing that seems so shadowy and dark is actually really a gift. Look at all the celebrations that came out of that. So I hope this helped for everyone normalize a little bit making money in business, normalize the ebbs and flows of income. So normal. I hope it took some pressure off for everyone, and I hope it helped everyone see as well just some of the ways we can really see the wins in things that don't always look like wins if we allow that to be true. And when you're willing to do that, that's also what, again, helps you to shift your perspective and to focus on bringing in more of what you want. And then please remember, set your focus on some of those process goals as well as those money goals. I do think that can just be so much more empowering and just feel a whole lot better. Nasheen says, thanks. Thank you for being here. And then just in closing, for those of you who want to hang out some more, definitely come find me in my Facebook group. It's Business Besties and Creative Bosses. I'll drop a link for that. And then I'm also on Instagram, which is my name, @KimArgetSinger. And I have a podcast called One Question, Unapologetic Questions for Unapologetic Results. We unpack one question every single week, a coaching question. I clearly love coaching. And we really look at the mindset, the thinking behind the question, as well as how you can apply that to your thought process. So you're thinking like a CEO, so you can get your own answers to that question and then apply that to your business instead of just feeling like you're being spoon-fed the answers. Lacey was on last week, the week before. Lacey was our guest really recently, and she had a really great question. So if nothing else, I invite you to go listen to Lacey's episode, because as we all know, she is so wise. So definitely come hang out with me there. I'd love to see you. Thank you again for being here. And Lacey, I hope you are not watching this and that you are at home with baby Bennett, but thank you for having me in your group. And we all miss you so much, and we can't wait to have you back, but it is also such a gift to get to be here in the interim. Michelle said, love this, Kim. Thank you again for doing this. Thank you all for having me. Bye.